Hello, this is Alan Wheeler on my channel where I've been talking about spirituality and the tarot. And an issue that's come up a few times in the past few videos has been the vocabulary left-hand path and right-hand path. So the title of this video will be something like left or right-hand path. And this will be the fourth numbered video in my playlist called Morrigan Moments, because I have my fairly new statue here of the Morrigan here at my altar with incense burning and candle going. So in preparing, I watched again a video on this topic by Benabel Wen, and she made the good point that this designation of left and right hand path could be a false dichotomy. She said it's probably more like a bell curve where it's a little mixed, and people go to one extreme and the other. The further extreme, the fewer the participants. And I found that useful. I saw on Wikipedia that the term seemed to mostly be used by people who consider themselves left-hand path people, and often their description stereotyped the right-handers as sheep, too rigid, this mainstream collective. Whereas the Wikipedia article pointed out, people in the right-hand path would probably unfairly classify those on the left hand as evil, hellbound, and almost caricatures. So that's all unfair, so I hate to use the terms overly, but I think it's useful just for thinking through, not as a partisan identity. I was reminded, thinking through this, back in high school when we played the old game Dungeons and Dragons, that characters would have an alignment, it was called. But there were two, it wasn't just good, neutral, or evil. There were two different spectrums. And so the alignment of the character on one spectrum would be either lawful, very law-abiding, and neutral, and on the other side of that spectrum, chaotic, and just if it feels good, do it, and following their own rules. The other spectrum was good, neutral, and evil. So characters could be a mixture. So, for example, a character like Han Solo, who doesn't follow any rules, he's out following his own path, would be chaotic, but yet he was a benevolent person. So he would be called chaotic good. So, a character like Darth Vader would be lawful evil because he followed the strict discipline of the Sith and the Empire and the dark side, but he was malevolent. So that throws some more characteristics into the mix there. I did note in a video I recorded yesterday, it was called As Within, So Without, when the Devil card came up, and it's number 2 in the Morrigan Moments playlist. And I noticed that sometimes the so-called left-hand practices, and by that I just mean alternative practices, maybe taboo in some camps, that sometimes this kind of imagery and this kind of practice can tap into mystical states, and the mystical states themselves would not be limited to left or right, to my way of thinking, as they would, as you would have Christian mystics, Buddhist mystics, and so on as well. So probably more complicated than just to say I'm left-handed, I'm right-handed. And I did note that there was one, I forget who it was, but someone just noted everyone's going to have a mixture of both, and it's are you predominantly right-handed, are you left-handed, or ambidextrous? So that was another analogy that could be thrown into the mix. So I drew three. I invoked the Morrigan and some altar time here, and drew three. Now I've lost a card again, like I did yesterday. How am I doing this? Yesterday I lost part of the video, and it's a complete mystery to me what I'm doing here. I see the card, and maybe I won't today, but I edited out because it took me several minutes looking around for the cards yesterday, and I wondered what trickster energy is coming up, and I think I'm knocking them down in my enthusiasm. Okay, so I drew three cards from the Smith-Waite Centennial edition of the Tarot, and the first card was the Seven of Cups. The second card, the Page of Wands, and the third card, the Four of Coins, which also came up in an earlier video. So here's my thoughts on these. To me, this card speaks strongly of the left-hand approach, the alternative approach when we create our own way, and imagination is involved, intuition, dreams and nightmares. It's wild and free. And whereas in a more traditional setting, Indiana Jones was told to pick from all the cups. He had to choose wisely and find the Holy Grail. And he did it, and he was told by the old knight, "You have chosen wisely." Whereas in this approach, maybe it's the creative, that primal creative freedom, that personal autonomy and sovereignty to create and to envision. It's this energy I see in the card. And again, it can be dreams or nightmares coming through this experience. As I noted, sometimes these practices can spark mystical experience and bring us deeper into meditation or transpersonal experiences, journeys, and that kind of thing. So the Page of Wands here speaks to me of that renewal of passion and that willing spirit, that motivation that we can sometimes lose when we're just going through the motions, and when tradition becomes stale, when things become too rigid, and the old wine skins crack and break, and we can't put new wine into the old wineskins. And then the last card speaks of a possible danger, that even when we do have the intuition and imagination, and this renewal, this spark when the snake sheds its skin and re-envisions spirituality. Over time, those new things themselves can become encrusted and become rigid, and we can cling to those routines. And so, what was once filled with love and vibrancy can become a clanging gong, that resounding symbol, that empty ritual, and that empty form once again. And perhaps leading to the need for renewal once again. So I'll stop there. There's a lot of food for thought. As always, thank you for joining, for listening in. I hope you feel connection with people in your life, with online community, and on your spiritual path, whatever that might be. Thank you.